Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to the brand new Lexus RX450h. Now, I guess Lexus were one of the first manufacturers to market with an SUV hybrid with the RX range, and they've been around a long time now, but this is the latest RX450h. A very handsome looking car. This is the plug-in hybrid version, and it's in a pretty stunning color. This is called Sonic Copper. I can imagine it's not for everybody. In certain lights it does look a little bit like a wrap, but it certainly makes a statement. And what I love about it is it shows off the angles and lines of the car brilliantly. Now in this video I'm going to take a retrospective look back at my week with this car. I've had to change the plans for the video a little bit due to the weather and also just the way my week has turned out. But let's just talk a little bit about styling. It's certainly a striking looking car. Now, I need to ask you a question. For me, the front end of this car has a little bit of Ferrari Roma about it. I know this is an SUV and the Ferrari Roma is a sports car, but just this kind of shark nose, I think it looks really, really smart. It's got quite a long bonnet in comparison to the car. When you look at it on side profile, the front end of the car does stick out quite a lot. Let's have a wander around the back, have a chat about practicality, and what I want to do is I've put this car through its paces over the last week. We've done a road trip of well over 500 miles and I've got to learn an awful lot about the car. So let's take a wander around the back, rear end styling and practicality next. Now first up, I know the car is filthy. As I said, we've been driving it all week. I'll try and use some B-roll I took before we left for our road trip where it was a little bit cleaner. When it's clean, this paintwork absolutely sings. But I love the rear end styling of the car. It's got this kind of little bit of touch of aero spoiler on the back. It's very clean, very sleek, this car. It just has this purpose about it. I love the detailing on the C-pillar, this kind of chrome sweep. I'm not normally a big fan of chrome, but that's quite a nice touch. Kind of almost makes you see the air moving over the car. In terms of boot space and practicality, let me just pop the boot open. It's a high-spec car, everything's electric and automatic on here, but it's a nice big size boot. You can drop the seats, both side seats and the middle one if you wanted to put skis in. But what's it like in terms of practicality? I mean, if you wanted to go on a road trip with a couple of dogs and lots of bags, would they fit in there?
First up, important road trip prep. Getting the harness on Darcy, she absolutely hates that thing, but this car is pretty cavernous, so hopefully we'll have plenty of space. We've also got the pups car harnesses in the back, nice cover to protect the seat. And the next thing we need to do is fill this boot, which is huge. But that was famous last words. We've got quite a lot of stuff, unfortunately. So pups are safely installed. I've just noticed that they've got actually heated and vented seats in the back, and you've got a couple of USB-C ports just in case you wanted to get your PlayStations out. Yeah. Now, loads of extra space, and you will, eagle-eyed people will notice that that is my wetsuit and my swim training stuff. I'm hoping I might even get a sea swim in as part of my triathlon training. But
oh yeah. Now, for our road trip, the only passengers we had in the back of the car were the two dogs. But for human beings, this is a nice place to be. Little touches, it's got a little window blind if it's too sunny. You've got 4-zone climate control. You've got cooled and heated seats in the back. You've got plenty of places to plug stuff in. You've got an actual proper power adapter under here for a 3-pin plug. Have all your games going. As I said, you could drop this down as a ski hatch, or it's got nice things, it's got some cup holders there, it's got a little cubby hole to store stuff. This is a really, really nice place. I'm a tall chap, I've got enough room here. I mean, this seat is all the way back for me as a driver, but this is a lovely place to do a long journey. It's airy, this pan roof just makes this cabin so airy. But the choice of materials in here are something else. Now, on our road trip, I really always like to try and get the perspective of Tracy, Mrs Petrol Ped. So I had a chat with the guys from Lexus and got her on the insurance. So she did the first leg of driving. What does she think of the RX450h? So we are on our way. We've been in the car about an hour and a half. We are following an awesome RS6. It's proper murdered out spec. It went past and both of us went, whoa. So, I didn't stand a chance of driving today. I've been driving the car for the last couple of days around home, but as soon as we walked out to the car, I realised that Tracy had the keys and she went straight for the driver's seat, and that's kind of what happens really, isn't it?
That's because you're driving so dull.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that. That's very supportive. So, initial impressions of the car?
Yeah, it's good. It's really quiet and it's smooth driving. So, yeah, it's good.
So the underpinnings, there are bits that we are familiar with. So let me tell you a little bit about the car. But this is the RX450h. It's got a 4-cylinder petrol engine, 2.5 litre. It's got the eCVT gearbox, so that's very familiar. I don't know whether it is exactly the same unit as the RAV4, but it's certainly going to be very, very similar in terms of how it works. And I know when we had the RAV4, we kind of didn't really get on with it to start with, but then actually started to really like that gearbox. But it does mean that the car has not a particularly sporty nature, but nice, smooth, mile-munching nature. It's 300. Just over 300 horsepower, 304 horsepower, but it does weigh 2.2 tons. So if you think it's the same power that we had pretty much in the Mini, but a much heavier car. So it's not going to set the world on fire performance-wise. It does 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, 124 miles an hour top end. Now the WLTP MPG figure for this car, get ready, 235 miles per gallon. That's just, it's never going to happen. What are we doing currently? We're averaging about 38. But it's very comfy.
It is comfortable.
The interior is lovely. Exterior wise, the colour, what do you think of the colour?
Well, it's not the colour I choose, but you like it.
It's pretty funky, sonic copper, but it is a very, very interesting colour. Certainly gets lots of comments. It's quite a big car, loads of boot space. The girls are sat in the back. They've got ample amounts of room, haven't you? Yeah, they're just fast asleep, chilling out. But yeah, interesting car. So, am I going to get to drive today?
No.
Oh.
Mostly because I just quite like to get there.
All right. That's a bit harsh.
That's true.
We've still got 2 hours 40 left. We're on the 303. The traffic's not been great. It wasn't great going past Stonehenge.
You're joking, aren't you? For this road, that traffic was good.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. It was. I thought it was really bad.
No.
I don't get Stonehenge. I know the stones come from, like, I don't know, Wales or something, but I still think, you know, it's just some stones stood in a field. Anyway, I'll probably get all my archaeology peddlers now having a go at me for dissing Stonehenge.
They're probably going to say you're an idiot, go learn some history.
And English heritage. The nice thing about cars like this is to get them on a longer journey and see what they're like. And the standout for me in this car straight away is it is so smooth. However, there is one feature that I'm going to mention because it's really, really annoying. There is part of the safety features of the car, there is an alert, a bong that happens when you exceed the speed limit. And it only happens, interestingly, the first couple of miles an hour into the or over the speed limit. And you can turn it off. We have it turned off right now. That's a speed camera warning, by the way, that little bong. That wasn't a speed limit warning. So we have turned it off, which is just as well because Tracy's driving. But, and this is the big but, you have to turn it off every time you get in the car. You can't turn it off and leave it off permanently. It resets itself every time you restart the car. So unless you have, I mean, I know it's a safety feature and you shouldn't be speeding anyway and there's all those legal caveats, but it's very annoying because it goes off even within like 1 or 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, which, let's face it, that happens quite regularly. So you have to turn it off in there every time, and that's really, really annoying, and there is no way around it. I've even spoken to the Toyota Lexus team and said, how do you turn the speed bong off permanently? And you can't, which is a bit annoying. Anyway, onwards.
It's raining.
I know it's raining, but
it's not part of the plan.
It'll be sunny when we get to Cornwall.
Yeah.
Let's hope in anyway. Now, Very quickly, I'm going to interrupt my video because I have some amazing news. Me and my mate Joe Achilles are starting a podcast. What's it called, my friend?
The Drive Talk Podcast.
And who's it powered by?
Me and you? Oh, you mean Michelin?
Yes. So we're starting a podcast. It's going to be available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We're filming it in person, so none of this Zoom rubbish. In person, 2 episodes a month starting in April. We're amazingly grateful to have Michelin on board from day one to help us get access to cool places like we are now in Ivalo in Finland, to cool drivers, to content. It's going to be really cool. We've got lots and lots of things planned.
Yep.
Can't wait to get going. But what we want you to do right now is go onto YouTube and search for Drive Talk Podcast, hit the subscribe button, go onto any of your podcast platforms, follow us on social media, on Instagram, just search Drive Talk Podcast, basically.
Yeah, find us.
Yeah.
Just find us.
Absolutely. And we'll see you in April. But for now, I'm going to go back to my film. As you can see, it got the thumbs up from Tracy anyway. Now, just let me talk you through the cabin. First up, you get in this car and it feels special straight away. The choice of materials is beautiful. It's funny, on modern day cars, you don't see the choice of a wood finish that often, but when it's done well, like it is in this car, there's touches of wood on the dash, on the main center console, even on the steering wheel. And it's just beautiful. It gives a lovely premium finish. These seats look amazing. They're very, very comfortable. And then on the door cards and on the dash, there's a nice choice of material, a combination of leather and Alcantara and a few really nice soft touch plastics. It's a beautiful, beautiful cabin. Let me just start the car. I've got memory seats, so I'm going to be moved into my place. The steering wheel's coming towards me, and you get in this absolutely stunning driving position. Let me just, one of the things like modern cars, you have to agree to everything in this car, which is a little bit annoying, to be fair. So yeah, from a driving comfort point of view, this car nails it. It is so comfortable. It's a really beautiful place to do some miles. Now, let me talk about drivetrain. So, as I've mentioned, we've got a 4-cylinder petrol engine coupled with a hybrid drivetrain, and the gearbox is the eCVT gearbox, very similar to the one I had in my Toyota. Now, if you're not familiar with that gearbox, one of the things you'll instantly notice is the high revving nature of the engine, and you get in it and it takes you a while to get your head around it, but once you realise that's actually the engine performing at its most efficient, then you kind of forgive it for that noise. But what about the hybrid drivetrain? It's a plug-in hybrid, so we've got a range of different drive modes from full EV, hybrid. I can even recharge the battery as I'm driving along. So how did I get on with all of those different drive modes, and just how complicated is it? So yeah, I thought we'd have a chat about the hybrid drivetrain because we found it quite interesting. Now, talked about this a lot with hybrids. The car has a number of modes. So when you get in it, it's in an automatic mode, and it will move between full EV and hybrid running at its own whim. It will decide when to do that, and from the limited experience we've had in the car, it favours EV, and what you'll find is you'll pretty much deplete the battery pack within, I don't know, 30 to 50 miles. And that's not what you want to do when you're going on a long journey. So you can then push a button down here to turn it and force it into a hybrid running. You can force it into EV if you only want to do EV running, if you were just doing local stuff. So we put it in hybrid running, and what you find on the motorway when you're driving at pace, it's a subtle way of saying heavy right foot, I think late 30s probably, don't you think? Sort of 35 to 38 miles per gallon, depending on how quickly you're going, is doable. When we started the journey, the car was indicating about 44 miles per gallon, but that was lots of local running as well. And the challenge, or the reason for that, is you're not really using the electric motor so much. You're on the petrol engine most of the time. Now, this is a plug-in hybrid, so when we get to our destination, we're going to stick it on the hotel charger and charge the battery pack back up again, because we've depleted it now. It's down to, how many miles of range have we got, Greaves? 7. 7 miles of range. So one of the things you can do, and we've done this a little bit just to try it out, is you can also push a button down there, the hold button, and what that does is it makes the car work in internal combustion engine mode and recharge the battery pack at the same time. and it charges it relatively quickly. The downside of that is you're going to use more fuel, because the engine is not only propelling the car forward, but it's also creating enough extra energy to recharge the battery pack. But I guess if you don't have a charger at your destination and you know you're going to do some local running and you want more hybrid running, maybe even more full EV running, you might do that on a longer journey, just replenish the battery pack as you go, but that is going to dent your MPG. And that all sounds quite complicated, and I think the challenge with hybrids is if you get your head around how to use them, they're brilliant. And I love plug-in hybrids. They're the kind of the jack of all trades. You've got full EV running. This car only does about 30 miles, but you've got reasonably efficient long-term running. You have no range anxiety. We were just talking about, we could have come down here in the in my long-termer, the Aria, but that has a indicated range on a full charge of about 220, 230 miles, so we would have had to stop. So you know, if you plan a stopping, that's not such a problem. But we're nearly there. What was that noise? Are we nearly there? Clearly we're now welcome to Cornwall, because we've got a tractor in front, we've got farmers with trailers and animals in. Now, I mentioned already, it's a big car footprint wise. It's got a really long bonnet. So what's it like from a practicality point of view? Well, first up, things like parking are helped incredibly by the various parking cameras that you have in the car and all of the different parking aids. It'll park itself if you want to. I'll never ever do that on cars, because I actually quite like the process of parking a car myself. But it is a big car. You've got a really nice elevated driving position. That's why people like SUVs so much, I guess. But what's it like when you're out and about driving? Well, we were in Cornwall, and it was quite amusing because we were following the satellite navigation. Waze doing a brilliant job of getting us around any traffic, although we did have a very good run down. But we found ourselves on a typical Cornish road, and I put this in just for my American subscribers. Waze is great, isn't it? Yeah.
These are routes I haven't ever discovered before.
I know, and you're from Cornwall.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's quite, we've been down some pretty narrow roads today. This is quite narrow.
Feels like you're going into someone's back garden.
I know.
It probably is not far off someone's back garden, actually.
Hey, the sun's out though.
Indeed it is.
Sun's out, guns out.
But you can see grass in the road.
I know. We're going down that way.
You kind of know that no one really uses it.
Oh, I think we're coming onto an A road. That should be a bit better. But yeah, this is Cornwall.
Indeed it is.
So yeah, on a long run, we actually, as you can see now, Waze has come up on the main dash, and Apple CarPlay is the mainstay for this. From a touch point of view, there are a lot of real buttons. All of the main driving modes that you select are in real buttons. All of your climate control, although they're touch screen through the main infotainment system, they are easy to get at. You can have all the climate buttons, from heated steering wheel, seat ventilation, seat heating. You've got rotational selectors to turn the temperature up and down. And then you can very easily go into the Lexus menu and go into the infotainment system for all of your various settings. But the big question is, what's it like from a performance point of view? The car has just over 300 horsepower. Is it an enjoyable drive? Where's its forte? What's it good at? So let's jump back in the car. I actually did get to drive the car on the way back from Cornwall. Let me just talk you through what this car's like to drive from a performance point of view. So on our way back from Cornwall, I finally got behind the steering wheel and having a go at driving. Now, this car's quite an interesting one from a driving dynamics point of view. Firstly, if you just want to do lots of miles in a lot of comfort and very smoothly and very quietly, that's where this car excels for me. It's a brilliant mile muncher. It is so smooth. If you want a more sporty natured car, then maybe not so. It's not that it doesn't have the performance. If you do need to overtake something or get yourself out of trouble, it can do that, and it does that with ease. It's quite a punchy car actually when you put your foot down on the throttle. You might find sometimes it's a little bit sluggish to react to throttle inputs. Now you can go into a sport mode using the gear select. If you just pull it back to yourself, it goes into a sport mode, and then you can go into a manual override using the paddles behind the steering wheel. Having said that, the eCVT gearbox does a brilliant job at, if you like, sort of selecting gears and mimicking that of a traditional gearbox, but it just doesn't quite have that sharp change. So if you are used to changing something like a twin clutch box using paddles, it's a very different driving experience. But if you wanted that slightly higher level of engagement, then sport mode on the paddles is certainly something that will kind of go halfway to giving you that. But for me, that's not really what this car is about. That's not actually the thing it excels at. This car is about smooth, wafting opulence. It's brilliant at that. Now, from a fuel economy point of view, on our way home, we're still averaging sort of mid-30s. Currently it's 35.8. So I think on a longer trip, that seems to be where that fuel economy line is going to be. But driving-wise, super smooth. The suspension soaks up all the bumps. It doesn't have a lot of roll and sort of pitch into corners. It keeps quite flat, and that gives you a nice sort of sporty feel. But yes, wafting, that's what this car's good at. So after a week of driving and well over 500 miles on the British roads, what are my final impressions of the Lexus RX450h? Well, I'll be honest with you, I absolutely love this car. It's a beautiful, beautiful motor car. It's appointed brilliantly inside. It's so luxurious, such a lovely place. It's so smooth and so quiet. We did 4 hours in the car yesterday and got out fresh as a daisy. It's a stunning mile muncher. There are a few challenges for me, however. Challenge number one, we haven't talked about price yet. When I got that car, I'd had it a couple of days and I went, this car is amazing. Quite fancy one of them. And then I realised that it's £80,000. Now I know that Lexus is a premium brand and it's beautifully appointed, the choice of materials, the quality of build, and I'm sure the reliability of that car will back up its price tag, but that's a hefty amount of money. Having said that, a new Land Rover Defender is that kind of money, so we're in that big SUV. 80 grand is kind of what you expect to pay. But unfortunately that means I'd have to really think very, very long and very hard about buying one. The bong that you have to turn off that tells you when you're going over the speed limit is super annoying. It's not a kind of, you know, I wouldn't buy it because of that bong, but it would really wind me up. And the fact you can't turn it off permanently, I don't get that at all. From a drivetrain point of view, the power's there as long as you're happy with the eCVT high revving nature of the engine, which I am now. Actually, it's got all the performance you need to do an overtake. The long distance MPG probably isn't quite as good as you would expect if you looked at the WLTP figures that are quoted for the car, but I think mid to high 30s on a long run, and then if you're doing shorter runs where you're using more of the hybrid drivetrain, more EV running, that number's only going to go up. I would imagine sort of, you know, 40 to 50 miles per gallon in local running is quite achievable. I'd like a little bit longer on full EV or EV only running. I haven't tried it out actually, but I think my gut feel says kind of 30 miles probably. I'd like that number to be 50, 60 miles of pure EV running. And then I think the car then really does, it ticks lots of boxes because you've got a town car or short distance run car that you can run on EV. We can charge it on our charger here and you'd never really have to turn over the petrol engine. And then on a longer journey, you don't have that range anxiety that you may well get with a full-blown EV. You don't have to worry about charging it up. Worst case scenario, you just splash and dash and put more petrol in it if you can't find yourself a charger or you don't want to be sitting on a charger for very long. It's a brilliant car. Absolutely love it. I'd love to know your thoughts on the RX450h. Also, let me know what you think of the colour, because it's really grown on me. And with those wheels, I know it's a bit bling, but boy, does it look good in the sunshine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film, guys. You take care. Drive safe.